When you come back from holiday and you've been shooting in RAW, then you do tend to need to process your RAW files because the camera just leaves them alone. It doesn't sharpen them, it doesn't add any extra saturation to the shots while it processes them. It leaves that all for you to do. So that means you've got more work if you've got a load of shots, but you can select them all, drag them into the Elements interface, and it'll automatically open them up in the Adobe Camera Raw editor. Now, I'm using the latest version, 4.2, so it's always a good idea to download that from the adobe.com site, or let Photoshop's updater find it for you. Now, the great thing about this editor here is you can see all of the shots you've opened down on the left as thumbnails, and you can also select them all and process them all in one go. Now, the beauty of being able to process all of the shots in one go is just speed, especially if they've been shot in the same location with the same camera. They're bound to have very similar problems. For example, let's just click on one of our shots like the camel here. Now, my shots tend to not have enough input level on the blacks there, so you can see that it peters out just before it gets to the darkest blacks, which gives you a kind of washed out looking shot with a very flat contrast. So we really need to boost the black levels in several of the shots. Again, this one here, you can see with histogram that it's kind of petering out, so the darkest pixels there could be a little bit blacker. Now, it doesn't apply to every shot, so you have to be careful not to get over the top when batch editing, because some shots look pretty healthy. That does have some darker pixels there. Indeed, it's also got a nice range of highlights too, and you can see some peaking at the far right there, and we've got some clipping there. So we don't want to go mad with our batch processing. A little tweak will do. We've also got some rather desaturated colors here, so all of the shots could do with a little boost in saturation. If we weren't shooting in RAW, the camera would probably do that for us, but we need to do that to all of our shots, and we can do that in one go by clicking Select All and then just tweaking some of the most common areas like the black levels and color. Let me just show you what I mean by those black levels being a problem. For example, you can see here that we've got a histogram that doesn't quite go to the far left, and a black pixel has a value of 0, 0 and 0. That's the darkest you can get. So if we move the cursor over a dark area like this bit of cave here and have a look at this part of the screen, you can see the RGB values, and instead of 0, 0, 0, they're 23 or 24 each. So the input level on the photo, the black input level, is 24, 24, 24, thereabouts, instead of 0, 0, 0. So we need to remap the black levels using the blacks slider. Now, we could do that individually on each shot, or we can just give them all a bit of a tweak using the batch editing tools. So to do that, let's have a look at the photographs. Now, this one here does have some good black levels there, so we're going to leave that one out of the batch edit for the moment. What we will do is just click on the other shots, scroll down and hold Shift and click again to select the rest of the photographs, but to leave this one untouched. And to keep quality up, what we'll do is change the depth to 16 bits per channel so that we've got much more color information to work with. Now, by default, the blacks are set to a level of 5, so they are actually boosted a little bit anyway when we open them up in the RAW editor, and the brightness and contrast is given a tweak as well. But if we take blacks to 0, you can see that the original RAW file is indeed very washed out indeed. So you've got a lot of gap there between the darkest pixels in the image and what they could really be. So do bear in mind, of course, we're batch editing, so we don't want to go and do some very dramatic contrast changes here, because it will affect some of the other shots. Some do have a problem, some don't. Let's have a little look. So this is just an overall gentle tweak rather than a major edit. Do bear that in mind when you're editing images in one go. So let's stick blacks up to about a value of about 9 instead of 5, and that will just darken them and give them a little bit more of a higher contrast in the overall range in all of the shots that we've selected. And as we edit our photographs, you can see that the batch selection here has got a little icon indicating that the shots have been changed. So what we'll do now is just boost the overall color of all of the shots, because that's another thing your camera does to TIFFs and JPEGs, but it doesn't do that to RAW files. So just give a vibrance value of about 25 maybe, and that will just give all of the photographs an extra oomph in the color department and makes them much, much brighter and more colorful and just more attractive to look at. And the cool thing about the RAW editor is if you want to have a look at the other shots to see how they're being affected, you could click on them, but then you would deselect them, and you'd have to start reselecting them again. So a quicker way of doing that is just to use this little arrow here, and you can then scroll through them all without deselecting any, so you can continue to batch edit by dragging these sliders around. So we've boosted colour, we've tweaked the tones, and you'll notice that by default all of the shots are given a bit of sharpening as well. It's actually a 25 value rather than 28. I've already been in here and tinkered, but that just gives them all a little bit of a crisper print. And once we've tweaked all of our shots, then what we can do next is to take them into Photoshop Standard Editor to fine-tune things like cropping, and also to add borders and do things that we can't really do in the Adobe Camera Raw editor as easily. So we're also going to tweak individual shots color temperatures to warm them up, for example. And to do that, what we can do is either click Open Images, and that will open a version of all of the shots in Photoshop Standard Editor. But before we do that, we can also save raw copies of our edited files as well as digital negatives, and that means you can then share them with people who can open them up in other raw editing packages. It's just nice to have another copy as well. So let's do that just to see that option. Click on Save Images. We can keep the document name so that they've all got the same name, but they'll have DNG instead of CR2 in this case, which is the Canon RAW format. So let me just drag that in there so you can see it. Right, so let's keep lossless ticked. We don't want to convert it to a linear image. Let's have a JPEG preview as well. If we keep that at full size, then we can see that easily when we're using a browser. And let's just click. Same folder will do actually. I've got them in my RAW folder. I click Save and Save Location, then it's easier to find them. Or you could pop them into a converted file, if you like, a converted folder, which you could create and then select using this option here. Okay, once you've decided on how you want to organize these new versions of your edited files, click Save, and you'll notice then it'll start to process. It's talking about how many are remaining here. It's chugging away like so. I'll show you the folder they've gone into once we've done this. Doesn't take too long, and we've only batch processed 4 out of our 5 shots, so it'll only have changed and created 4 new versions. So let's have a look at the folder, and here's the original RAW files, the CR2 files, which is Canon's own RAW format, and here's the digital negative version. So we can open these up at a later date and bring them into Photoshop's Standard Editor.